O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but Thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
So with all that being said, now let me get into my arguments for why America will be Orthodox and why this isn't a trend, but a true reaction against the failures of modernity general. So number one reason, as you guys could guess, the number one reason why Orthodox is going to continue to grow in America is the failure of modern Western Christianity. And so, as you guys already know, and I've already made this case multiple times, and if you've listened to some of the previous streams, I've mentioned this, that even during my PhD defense, one of the scholars, she is a philosopher out of the Thomistic tradition. She's an expert on Aristotle, and her scholarship focuses on neuroscience, philosophy of mind, philosophy of person and brain, that type of stuff. And when she read my book, I'm making the case in my book very explicitly that Orthodoxy is the only pre-modern alternative, Christian alternative in America. And I make the case, and I try to actually present that in chapter 3, that even the Catholic Church is still modern. And so she actually questioned me during the defense of my dissertation and said, the Catholic Church is also pre-modern. And then I brought up Vatican I, Vatican II aspects that are coming out of the Vatican, Pope Frank, now Pope Leo. And she conceded that, yeah, I guess you're right. The Catholic Church has modernized in many ways. And so if modernity is the problem, a pre-modern solution is the only answer. And so modern Christianity is filled with modernism. Modern Christianity is filled with liberal theology. And so this liberalness, again, neoliberalism, it's part of modernity itself, is that modernity is built on this idea of progress. And you may think that progress is just technological or scientific or material. That is the case. As we've said, the 5 pillars of modernity are rationalism, individualism, scientism, technological progress, and democracy, right? It's these 5 pillars that define the modern age. And that's what is meant by modernism. And that's what the postmodernists are rejecting, right? They're rejecting that paradigm as a fulfilling structure that will ultimately lead to utopia. And I agree with the postmodernists, it's not going to lead to utopia. And with the liberal theology, we've seen that this sentimentality towards progress has also meant changing the entire theology of Christianity. You've seen the Anglican Church want to take out male pronouns for God. How the hell do you get there? Now they have like an Archbishop of Canterbury as some liberal woman. Well, what man dealing with the problems of modernity, the existential crisis? We're talking about, if you're in Europe, Muslim stabbings about every day. We're talking about immigrants coming to your community and mocking you, killing you, and then getting paid by your government from your taxpayer money to do it. And then if you speak out against it, in the case of England or Germany, online, the police will come and arrest you for it. And you want people to find refuge in a liberalized Christianity where the Archbishop of Canterbury welcomes Muslim graffiti on their churches as a form of multicultural semiotic expression? What? That's not going to work. That's not going to work at all. And so the liberal theology, the relativism, which has emerged, that's why, the Methodist Church has split between the global Methodist, which is really, a sort of maintaining of some type of conservative Protestantism. Just because they don't want to marry gays, the United Methodist Church had to split from them because it's so liberalized. And so how can you, as a Christian pastor with some woman who has a multi-rainbow colored, vestment on, tell you, oh, well, you need to abide by Scripture, when Scripture says she shouldn't even be in the pulpit, tells you that men should not be sleeping with men and women shouldn't be sleeping with women, that this is a bastardization and a diminution of the image of man, moving back to a sort of bestial mentality, somebody who's totally possessed by sexual passions. And yet these same churches are trying to codify it as part of their doctrines. And essentially it's almost their dogma, right? Because if you go against it, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, as if we have some irrational fear of it, right? That's why I hate the phobia language. We do not have an irrational fear. We are just against the idea of men sodomizing men, and somehow that's equal to me and my wife's sacramental marriage. It's not the same thing. Sorry, that's just the case. And so you have liberal theology, relativistic epistemology, relativistic morality. There is no unifying characteristic to Western Christianity. There's no unifying characteristic to Catholicism, except some sort of remnant submission to the papacy. I mean, what is it that unites the sedevacantists from the super, neoliberal or super liberal, progressive Novus Ordo priest and parishioners? That they both have some type of fidelity to the papacy. That's about it. Is that true unity? Is that a true theology? And so this is why in Protestantism specifically, but we're seeing this in the Catholic Church too. I mean, even in the Vatican, you're seeing circus performers try to present the faith. I mean, remember what Pope Francis, you guys seen the videos, right? Where Pope Francis is sitting there watching these male circus performers, and it has this weird erotic vibe to it. And you're like, what the hell is going on here? Well, worship has become entertainment in the West. And so because of the failed theology, because of the failed epistemology and morality, what do you get? You get a sense of sort of gratification through an entertainment type of worship, thereby no longer delineating your worship on Sunday from you sitting down and watching a Netflix documentary later that day. You can sip your chai latte, you get the lights, you get the music, you get the electric drum set on stage, you get the feel good sermon, or maybe it's more of a, let's say it's a more reformed conservative sermon. Okay. But it's still all entertainment. Like, people are going to churches to be entertained. When in history is that the purpose of the church? So my point here is that modern Western Christianity has entirely failed. I truly believe, and I talked about this with Cleave to Antiquity on his channel. I mean, is it going to exist in 200 years? Is it going to exist in 100 years? Certainly not at a substantial demographic level. It can't. Protestantism is going to be washed away with the times because there's nothing for it to hold on to, because they don't have the unified ethnic and religious communities they once had. And now they can't even deal with the precepts of modernity and the failing of the American project. So what are they going to do? It's going away, guys. We talked about with the average age of attendee, it's going away. I mean, the only Christian forms that will probably truly be present in America, if America still exists in 100 to 200, 300 years, maybe some type of Pentecostalism, because that is still growing like wildfire in Central and South America and Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, because they can mix the ecstaticism of Pentecostalism with their own Afro-pagan, animistic religions. So Pentecostalism may still be here. I mean, I suspect Mormonism will still be here. Mormons aren't Christian, of course, but it's going to be Catholicism and Orthodoxy. And I don't see, me just looking and prognosticating into the future. I don't see Catholicism really going to stand the test of time. It's just, is it really based to be Catholic anymore? I mean, they have to defend the things coming out of the papacy like every other day. Is Catholicism really trad? I mean, but Pope Leo is trying to make some type of, trying to extend some type of olive branch to the trad Catholics. But Pope Francis was quite clear. He didn't want them in the church. So to me, Catholicism, Western Christianity in general, has failed, and it offers no out to the existential crisis of modernity, because all of them are modernist projects. You can say that the Catholic Church in origin was pre-modern, but with the influence of Renaissance humanism, with the influence of the Enlightenment, scientism, Vatican I, Vatican II, the Novus Ordo, Mass. Like, this is not a pre-modern faith anymore. This is entirely within the confines of modernity. And so, number one reason why America will be Orthodox is that Western Christianity has failed. It's failed. It's over. It's not it's not winning any future battle. The only thing that I would say is maybe all these opposing this Western Christianity. One possibility in the future is that it will sort of amalgamate itself into some sort of unified entity, which will set the stage for people to bow their knee to the Antichrist, because it's already filled with all the worldlyism. I mean, and half the Protestants are Zionists, and they're literally aiding and abetting the coming of the Antichrist because they have a false theology. Again, because it's already failed, they have a false theology. The theological foundations of their systems themselves have failed. So, number one, the failure of modern Christianity. Number two, my second reason why America will be Orthodox is there is a hunger for transcendence in a secular age. This is the whole principle for my book, Return to Babylon, is that in our secular age, and what I refer to as the post-secular age, meaning that secular ideologies no longer function as something distinct from a religious ideology or theology, that now in our postmodern, post-secular state, they are operating on equal footing, that communism can be viewed as a religious orientation just as much as Buddhism can be, because they fulfill the totalizing meta-narrative of meaning within people's lives and become the foundational lens in which all things are perceived by. So from that perspective, what are going to be the two battling narratives for human transcendence? Because that's what people are yearning for when they're watching Star Wars, when they're watching the modern Marvel superhero movie. What is the premise behind all of it? It's the idea that we can transcend our limitations. And really, there's only going to be two options. There's going to be transhumanism, where through material amalgamation, you will transcend your biological limitations. And in their false promise, their demonic promise, they're going to say that you'll be more than you've ever been. You'll be a cyborg that will be omniscient. You'll be immortal. You'll be able to heal yourself. You'll be able to do all things. Maybe you'll even be spacefaring. So it's just this appeal that the transcendence is just transcending the confines of your mortal biological entity. That's the transhuman transcendence. But my argument is that's going to continue to grow. Transhumanism is on the rise. Despite what people think, there's so many people out there criticizing transhumanism, and I'm one of them. But one of the things people don't appreciate is that it is a compelling narrative for people. If you adopt the precepts of secularism, transhumanism is a compelling narrative for a religious mythos inside your paradigm. What is the alternative methodology for individual or collective transcendence? It's theosis, it's orthodoxy. And so moving forward in America, the narratives about transcendence, spiritual transcendence, I truly believe are going to be the Orthodox doctrine of theosis and transhumanism, because transcendence and spiritual deification are not central cores of Western Christianity, which I already began with, has already failed. So Western Christianity is kind of out on the ends. And the two narratives then that are going to compete about what it means to transcend is going to be Orthodox theosis, which says your biological entity, yes, it's going to die. Yes, it's going to age, but that is part of spiritual growth. You cannot pass through the door of eternity without dying, because that's what Christ did. And we follow Christ. And that is a totally different perspective than doing anything and everything you can to not die. In our drama alert, that was the very last topic that we discussed was Brian Johnson, the transhumanist, the guy who looks like he's mid-20s, he's in his 40s, he's a multi-millionaire. And he said, I have a new moral philosophy. It's called Don't Die. Wow. Who thought of that? I bet. Did you pull that out of the Greek tradition? Where'd you find that really deep moral philosophy? His whole thing is that we just need to supplant the myths of religion with a new myth of telling people to not die. But guys, look at his following. Like thousands and thousands of people are part of this. So this is the irony. As orthodoxy grows, transhumanism grows. And so my point then is that transcendence is not transgression. Transcendence in the Orthodox framework is not about transgressing boundaries. We've talked about this before, about psychedelics, about, you know, how they dissolve boundaries, and that all the boundaries in our contemporary world are being transgressed. You know, no border, no wall, no USA at all. National boundaries dissolved. Boundaries between man and machine dissolved. Boundaries between man and animal, really, you can point your finger towards Darwin, dissolved. Boundaries between men and women dissolved. What boundaries are there that exist? I mean, you can't even, for some people, obviously this is common knowledge. Obviously this is just common sense. But for a vast majority of people, you can't even say that men can do certain things that women can't do, or that women can do things that men can't do. Now, usually there's less pushback on that. You say, yeah, but women can give birth. I can't give birth. Usually there's less pushback on that. But if you say, yeah, women can't, you know, they can't work the oil rig. They can't do the dangerous jobs. They can't keep society running the way men can. They are not as physically strong. They are not as rational on average. Those are just facts. But you get pushback on that. Common sense. And so America, I argue, is defined by consumerism, materialism, secularism, relativism, and individualism. Modern America, 21st century America. You consume your identity. What is your identity? Well, it's not your ethnic, especially if you're white. You're not allowed to say that. So you can't say, I am European. I'm a European, or I'm a European. You can't use your ethnic identity unless you're a minority, of course, then you can. But you consume your identity. It's the clothing brands you wear, right? I wear Dolce & Gabbana. I wear Louis Vuitton. Gay, very gay, but much of America consumes their identity. It's consumerism, materialism, secularism, relativism, individualism. It's only orthodoxy that offers real transcendence, a replacement for the individual with community. And that doesn't mean that we're anti-individual. I mean, there's so many books written about how Christianity in general, right? In general, Christianity is already promoting a novel understanding of the individual within history, because a singular person, Jesus Christ, entered into historic time, i.e. an individual, right? A singular person. And that we then are to carry our cross and follow him. We are not, a total collectivist mindset. There is obviously a role of the individual. In our Orthodox framework begins with our subjective experience with God, theosis, mystical encounters, the sacraments. Those aren't definable by science. They can't do measurement and averages to try to analyze exactly the mystery that's happening in the Eucharist or the sacrament of marriage. No, it's beyond those categories. But community is huge. And as I just said, America doesn't have communities. How do you get a community in America? You have a video game you like to play and you meet up with other people that like to play it online. Is that community? Is that a self-sacrificial community? Is that a community that's going to withstand actual trauma and persecution in the world? Absolutely not. I mean, it's legitimately, this is the whole premise of the book Bowling Alone, if you guys are familiar, which is documenting bowling leagues in America and how few people actually, and it's a sociological commentary, not just on bowling, right? It's not about bowling. It's using bowling as a singular specific metric to view communal activity and essentially the collapse of America, and how Americans, we no longer do things collectively. Very rarely. You ask Gen Z, it's the most isolated generation of all time. The amount of people who regularly go and spend time with a group of friends is at a historic low. And so, rewind to the 1970s, 1980s, it was still common for groups of people to go do things together as groups. Where is that in modern America? Again, it's the digital isolation that we're under. And the digital isolation feeds upon the individualism, which is a core ideal of the American mind. So Orthodoxy is the only thing that offers true transcendence, community, beauty, divine order, tradition, mysticism, and liturgical depth. And so as this number 2 point is highlighting, hunger for transcendence in a secular stage is the reason why so many young men are looking for orthodoxy. And it's only orthodoxy that provides the correct prescription to the descriptive destruction that we've already outlined of America. And so that's why the second point, why America is going to be orthodox. Orthodoxy is the only one that offers true transcendence. It's that narrative is going to compete with transhumanism. It's the only one that offers a community where you actually are responsible to other people, guys. And I'm going to come back to the community one. It's the only one that offers a true return back to aesthetic beauty. And I'm going to return back to that at another point. Divine order, hierarchical authority. Men actually have specific roles that women do not engage in, right? Just that it sounds so simplistic, but point to me anywhere in American society where you can say men do this, women do not do this, they do this, and men do not do that. Well, just anything. It's so general, but just tell me anything in American society where that's the case. So with that being the background, the fact that we have an all-male hierarchy and clergy, that is huge. That is huge. So we have true order. We have true tradition, right? We have the true apostolic tradition. We don't have all the novelties of Catholicism, for example. I mean, Catholicism, you could say, is arguably the biggest competitor to Eastern Orthodoxy, but it's constantly shooting itself in the foot. I mean, as much as the Catholic apologists and tradcaths online want to try to defend this sort of idealized crusading spirit of the Catholic Church, that does not exist, my brothers and sisters, but it doesn't exist. The Catholic Church, really? You see that as standing up against globalism? You see Chrislam? You see Chrislam in Abu Dhabi standing up against globalism. Your church literally says you worship the same God as Muslims. Good luck. Good luck defending your Western Catholic nation when your church says, oh yeah, welcome the Muslims. We worship the same God. Meanwhile, Muhammad just raped your daughter and stabbed her. Yeah, not really going to find the appeal. So it's only Orthodoxy that still has the true mysticism, the tradition, and the liturgical depth. Number three, the third reason why America will be Orthodox is the sacred aesthetics. Obviously, look at, and we talked about this in the think tank. Look at modern American aesthetics. Look at the buildings. Look at the infrastructure. You know, at least I was talking with the members in the Logos Academy. You know, somebody asked, like, what is the aesthetic of America? And I would say, well, you know, if we're talking about the late 19th century, early 20th century, it's like Art Deco. And I don't hate Art Deco. I think Art Deco, you know, it does have an aesthetic beauty. It's not the Orthodox Church. But in 21st century America, what is the aesthetic? I mean, can you really see an aesthetic difference between, you know, the USSR and their blocky square buildings to try to get as many people in an allocated space as possible with modern America? No, it's the exact same thing. It's the minimalist utilitarian approach to aesthetics and architecture. That is America. That was the USSR. It's the same damn thing. There is no beauty in America right now. Show me where that is. And so we worship with all five senses. You know, taste, touch, smell, hearing. Taste, touch, smell, hearing. What's the fifth one? Feeling, touching. No. Taste, touch, smell, hearing, seeing. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. God forgive me. So third one is because of the aesthetic and because of our understanding, we actually engage in God with all five senses. We actually participate in the full aesthetic and re-sanctification of the human figure of the Imago Dei. We have the incense, we have the chanting, we have the iconography, we have the vestments, we have the historic continuity. Now, some people, and this is really aimed at the Protestants, that is a form of aesthetic, believe it or not. Your ecclesiology, I mean, this is the death blow to Protestantism. If you're doing a debate, the ultimate death blow, you can debate sola scriptura, interpretive authority, all this different stuff, but show me the Protestant church that existed in the first century. Show me the ecclesiology of modern Protestant church. Choose one that existed. I don't care if you choose High Lutheranism or Anglicanism. Show me the Protestant church that their ecclesiology was present in the first century. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And so people find a beauty in the historic continuity of tradition. And I think this is why we're getting so many Catholic converts as well. It's not that Catholics don't have their own aesthetic beauty, because they do. I myself like the Gothic architecture. I like the Gothic vibe. I've been to Europe. I like, the Catholic churches it's very, very beautiful. However, look at the Catholic Church now. Look at what it's doing in the world, and look how it's breaking from the historical continuity of its own foundation. That has its own sort of failure of a sort of intellectual aesthetic. Orthodoxy has it. We have a historic continuity, and beauty is sacramental and mystical in our faith. Beauty is a way in which we can directly engage in God, and it's something that each one of us are called to produce. We produce beauty in our families. We produce virtue in ourselves, which is beautiful for the world. We are called to produce beauty in the world. And that's a huge difference. That focus of beauty actually being sacramental, right? We don't want a pastor with his new Jordans on, with his blue jeans and his new, Louis Vuitton t-shirt on with the gold chain. That is not beautiful. That is not harmony. That is not true aesthetics. That is modernity. And so because of these sacred aesthetics, to exactly John Hammond's point, art is an opportunity right now. If you are a craftsman, if you are good at woodworking, if you are an architect, if you are a painter or an artist or a drawer or whatever thing you do, if it is an artistic expression, you need to develop that skill, because we need you. We need you, because as we talked about, you've heard me say this 1,000 different times, this sociological theory called the Sacred Canopy by Peter Berger. It's in this book right here, The Sacred Canopy. And to boil this whole book down for you, the elements of a sociological theory of religion, is he's arguing that there is a process called legitimation. And it builds what he refers to as the sacred canopy, a canopy in which people under any nation live within. And it is the legitimizing process in which we externalize ideas, concepts, heroes, folklore, myths, religion, theology. It becomes objectified, and then other people can see it as an object in our culture, and then they internalize it, and then they themselves externalize it. And this feedback loop, this process of externalizing, objectifying, and internalizing is the thing that builds a shared canopy of society. Well, we get to compete in the construction of a new canopy, because the American experiment is done. Right? There is no shared canopy in this country. There is no reconciling our differences with people like Mamdani. Even, you can make an argument of why it's logical why people voted for him regarding the failures of the Republican and Democratic Party. Okay, that aside, people who hate you as being a white Christian in America, it's very little space for reconciliation at this point. I mean, when people are chanting "no border, no wall, no USA" at all, it's very difficult for reconciliation to find a middle point. The sacred canopy is totally torn. And so if you are artistic, you can, again, be inspired by the beauty of the church and then re-externalize this to the world as a part of your own evangelism. right? You don't have to do debates to evangelize orthodoxy. In fact, orthodoxy, number one, doesn't even spread by debates. It spreads by encounter of people being orthodox, right? Which may be a good Orthodox man is in a debate, and then people are interested in his ideas or why he's the way he is. But generally speaking, and I know in our modern age, debate is huge, right? All these online debates are huge for getting people exposed to orthodoxy. But the thing that really converts a person is them actually engaging with an Orthodox Christian and seeing who they are, especially men. So this is an opportunity. If you're an artist, we have the most beautiful form of Christianity. We do. I will take a beautiful Byzantine Orthodox cathedral with Byzantine style iconography, and maybe you prefer Russian or whatever. Choose whichever flavor of Orthodox aesthetics you prefer, and compare that with a modern Catholic church or a modern Protestant church. We win, guys. We win. We have the beauty, and beauty is an uncreated energy of God. So that's my third point, is we are the most beautiful option out of all the Christian options. And when you become Orthodox, you need to take that inspiration, and if you are artistic, express it and use that as your own evangelism. All right. Number 4, the theological and philosophical coherence. This is where the debates come in, and this is why the debates are important. The number 4th reason why America will be Orthodox is because on an even playing field of ideology, again, we win. We win by being the only pre-modern option. That was point number 1. We win by being the only true Christian transcendent option. Number 2. We win by being the most beautiful option. Number 3. And number 4, we win because we are the most compelling philosophical and theological option on the market as well. And this is why the debates are so important in changing people's minds, because you don't change the mind of your debate opponent. Rarely has that occurred in any debates that I've seen or participated in. But what you do is you change the perception of the viewer who's kind of just sitting there. Maybe they don't have a strong opinion. Like when I do a debate, obviously in the debates that I've done, and I know this is true for Jay and a lot of our Orthodox brothers, you have a significant swath of the chat who's already Orthodox, and they're already on the same page with you. They're on your team. But whenever you do a debate, there's a handful of people that really aren't on any team. Those are the people you're trying to get in a debate. It's just the average watcher who really isn't polarized to one side or the other. And in that battlefield, on that playing ground, again, we win. We win on our historic arguments. We win on our theological arguments. We win on our aesthetic arguments. And we can even win in a philosophical argument. So my point here is that Orthodoxy is the only one that's truly intellectually satisfying. And I think for most people who are kind of heads, and I've talked with so many people, I myself am one of those. I know FDA, shout out to FDA in the chat. He's a head. A head is just a term for somebody who he's a thinker. They're in their head a lot. They like to read. They like to learn. They like to connect dots. That's why people say psychedelics are often for heads, because people are already in their heads. And so they take psychedelics because it alters the internal experience, the mental experience. But I would argue that the theological and philosophical coherence of Orthodoxy is so intellectually satisfying. And that was for me what shifted everything, right? I saw the beauty. I knew parts of the history. I was a non-believer, right? I'm a non-believer taking a course on Orthodox theology and history. What convinced me, and this is why for some of us, we are so Western and rational, myself included. I was too rational. So what did God do? He met me where I needed to be met. Through providence, I end up in a course learning about Orthodoxy as a total non-believer. I'm not even Christian, not even Protestant, nothing regarding Christianity. I'm a psychonaut. I'm pro-psychedelics. I'm perennial. And the intellectual beauty and coherence of the Orthodox parent, what we refer to as the both and paradigm, was so satisfying to me, even as a non-believer, that I remember leaving that course saying, you know, I'd never be religious. I'd never be part of a tradition of men, you know. But if I was, my God, Eastern Orthodoxy is, I've never heard Christianity articulated in such depth and such sophistication and such nuance and such coherence. Man, if I was going to be Christian, if I was going to be religious, no matter what religion, it would definitely be Orthodoxy. And because that resonated so deeply within me, it eventually brought me to, you know what? I got to do it. I got to become Orthodox. I got to start going to an Orthodox church, because even before I went to a church, even when I was done with the course, that's when I read St. Maximus the Confessor on the cosmic mystery of Jesus Christ. I hadn't read that book yet. But again, reading that book with all the presuppositions that I had formed, I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. This is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And so it's only Orthodoxy that preserves the true imago Dei of man and his calling for theosis. As I said, yes, there's kind of these doctrines of sanctification in Western Christianity. It's not theosis, guys. I'm tired of people, you know, I get Catholics on videos talking about theosis. They're like, yeah, well, we believe in sanctification too, dude. It's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. You don't have the essence energy distinction. You don't have the theology of the uncreated energy. Stop. Just stop right there. Yes, you have some notion of sanctification. It's not the same thing as theosis. Stop. It's just dumb. It makes you look uninformed and ignorant. These are different. These are maybe subtle to you, but importantly, distinct paradigms, distinct theological systems. Okay. And so it's only Orthodoxy that truly preserves the understanding that you and I are made in the image of God, with the telos, with the potential, with the purpose to become like God through grace and participate in divinity and eternity as a consequence of our willful participation with God. So it's Orthodoxy that understands what it means to be fully human, to unite body, soul, and nous with Christ. You know, it's only Orthodoxy that can actually give you a full articulation of spiritual warfare, saying, hey, you know those weird thoughts you keep getting? You know how you do X, Y, Z, and then you start thinking X, Y, Z, and then all of a sudden you start doing the thing that you said you weren't going to do? You know, a la, you know, Paul in the epistles, I do the thing I wish that I don't do, and I don't do the thing that I wish I do. That's us. But the spiritual battlefield's in the mind. It's the imagination. Where is the imagination? Where are your noetic faculties? Are they within space and time? Do they exist after you perish? How do you contact angels and demons? You see, it's the anthropology, it's the philosophical, theological coherence of Orthodox that puts everything in place. And this is why so many people, I guarantee you, people in the chat, let me know. People in the chat, when you became Orthodox, did everything begin to fall into place? Did everything begin to fall into place? That's the beauty of the paradigm. It's just everything could be conspiracies, could be cultural aspects. But once you're Orthodox, it's like you have the correct categories to perceive everything. Could be spiritual warfare, could be your salvation, could be the transgender cults or the LGBTQ mafia or the ecumenism that's spreading around all forms of religion. Now you have the rubric to see what's exactly going on. So number 4, the whole point is that theologically and philosophically, it's Orthodoxy that wins again in its coherence. This is why the tag argument, is one of the preferred apologetic methods of myself, FDA, Dyer, because if you actually know the state of contemporary philosophy, it's the tag argument that's actually dealing with why philosophy has died. And then Orthodoxy is the one that actually provides you an ability to defend against all the other traditions. It could be secular or religious, doesn't matter. So that's number 4. Number 5, my 5th reason why America will be Orthodox it's the crisis of meaning and identity. I've kind of already touched on this, but I haven't spoken specifically on it. It's that modern progress has not delivered peace and utopia, but moral and psychological exhaustion. That's what I believe, is that, as I said, the point of modernity was that it was going to, every generation was going to get better. If you're a millennial or a Gen Z, do you think you're in a better position than your parents? Do you think they were in a better position than their grandparents? You could kind of make the argument that the boomers were in a better position than their parents, but it definitely ended with the boomers. And the irony is that's when we had the technological exponential growth. That should be, the boomers forward should be the utopia. That should be way better than the boomers, but it's not. And the resulting of the world from the boomers forward has been the meaning crisis, the identity crisis. And so, our entire world is being eroded. Your ethnic identity is being eroded. Your national identity is being eroded. Your familial identity is being eroded through divorce, through, the sexualization of our society. The intactness and the sanctity of family itself is being eroded. So if you are an American, where do you find your identity? Where is it? What is it? That's a difficult question for a lot of people to answer. There isn't really anything there. There isn't really anything there. And that's why you wear Supreme. You buy, you buy low quality food, or low quality commodities is what I'm looking at. Low quality commodities with brand names to identify who you think you are, because you have no identity. And if you have no identity, there's nothing for you to die for. And that means you are incredibly malleable, because as long as your necessary needs are met, meaning maybe food and shelter, maybe a little bit of extra spending cash for entertainment, you will not resist, because you have no foundation to resist from. Don't you see that this is part of the problem? This is part of the progress of our society and where we're at. And so modernity, I argue, equals historic alienation. Why is that? Because none of your ancestors ever lived in history with the presuppositions of modernity like you and I do, like our entire world does. And so because of that, we are historically alienated from our own people. We are historically alienated from the human experience of the pre-modern world, in which we actually believed in mystical realities. We witnessed miracles occur. We saw God work in the world. And the modern American doesn't live in that reality anymore. The rational modernity has sort of really, I wouldn't say cleansed. It's almost the detritus has taken over the lens in which they perceive reality, and they don't see mystery in the world anymore. And if there is, we're told science is going to uncover it. It's going to explain it. Well, now we are literally ethnically and nationally and religiously alienated from our ancestors. Where the hell do you get identity? Typically, your identity was given to you. If you existed in a pre-modern world, your identity is given. Where were you born? Oh, you were born in Serbia? What language do you speak? Oh, you speak Serbian? What religious are you? Oh, you're Serbian Orthodox? That's your identity. Doesn't matter where you go in the world. Doesn't matter if you move to China and get Chinese citizenship. You're not Chinese, right? So we live in a country, in America and England. I just saw that was going viral today in England, that there was a veteran war hero who was crying on live television because he said the England that I fought for no longer exists. That this is worse. Essentially, this is worse than the potential outcome of him not fighting in the Second World War. And then you have all these people, these Indians and Asians and all these people saying, well, I'm English. I'm English. I'm English. No, you're not. You can say you have English citizenship. You have UK citizenship or something. You're not English. And every time immigrant communities come into a predominantly, let's just be factual here, it's mostly white European nations, or formerly white European nations in the case of America and Canada. But immigrants come there, and because of our magic dirt theory, they are equal identity as you, even though they themselves will say, no, I'm Indian, I'm Hindu. No, we celebrate the celebration of lights and Diwali and fireworks going off. Like, No, no, that's not the same thing as me. I'm not going to, we can't allow for immigrants to, again, take the little bit of identity we even have left, which is just secular nationalism, right? That's all we're saying is that maybe ethnic or secular. In America, it's more secular nationalism, sort of a white identity majority. But in the case of Europe, they have real ethnic concerns. There's a thing called a German. And a German has an actual, a sequence of their DNA that identifies them as German. All the Turks and the Pakistanis and the Afghanis that are in Germany, you're not German. I don't care if you're fluent in German. I don't care if you were born there. It's not the same thing. And so we exist in a state of a crisis of meaning and identity. And so Orthodoxy is the only thing that offers, as I said, a pre-modern continuity with the apostles, our church fathers, and our European ancestors. Because at one point, even if they were Catholic or Western, they existed in a pre-modern world. They perceived the world in pre-modern terms. And so Orthodoxy, I argue, is a coming home. That's why we tell people, welcome home, welcome home, welcome to the church. Hey, I just got baptism. Glory to God, brother. Welcome home. What are we meaning by that? That it truly is a welcoming of home. It's a realigning, as I said, with Cleaves to Antiquity. It's a realigning of our ancestral lineage. That's how I felt when I converted to Orthodoxy, is that my family is mostly of English, Irish, some German background. Okay, that's my ancestral familial line. They were Protestants. I have multiple Protestant pastors in my dad's family tree. A couple of them got THDs. One person had a PhD. All of them Methodist, all of them very explicitly Methodist and promoted Methodist Protestant Christianity. Well, when I converted to Orthodoxy, I truly believe what I've done is realigned my family tree. And that's why for me, it was essential that I had an Orthodox wife. Because by me, it's not just me, casually aligning myself with my family tree and then saying, oh, well, as long as my wife's just nominally Christian, it's okay. No. We're going to have Orthodox Christian babies. We're going to be an Orthodox Christian family. My goal is that in 3 generations, when I'm dead for, a generation or two, I want so many Orthodox Christians in America that have DNA ties back to me and my wife, that we did that. That's something money can't buy. That's how you win the culture war. That's how you establish identity. And that's why Orthodoxy, why Americans will be Orthodox, is because it actually gives them identity. What does it mean to be American? It means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing right now. And so if you become Orthodox, at least you have now a historic identity. America itself, even if you just accepted this nominal identity of being an American today, which means nothing, how long's that identity lasted? Not even 300 years. Not even 300 years. We're talking about a 2,000-year-old tradition. And the nation state of America hasn't even existed for 300 years. So what you get as an Orthodox Christian is the ability to reconstruct your identity, that first and foremost, you're an Orthodox Christian. What that means is now you have a historic lineage that connects you back to your European ancestors or your ancestors, wherever your ancestors, could be anywhere. The same thing could be true no matter where you come from. But 2, it allows you to now perceive what a true transformation of America would look like. That we need to make more Americans Orthodox so that we can have an Orthodox nation. We don't just take a hold of the power structure and declare it Orthodox Christian. That would never work. There's too many non-Orthodox Christians in America. The way we win is converting the hearts and minds of Americans, giving them a sense of identity and giving them a reason for the resanctification of the nation and what the purpose of the nation is. The purpose of the nation is to reflect the will of God in the world. That's not what America is now. And so with Orthodoxy too, in addition to all the meaning and the identity, the true meaning then, it's not just I've talked a lot about the sort of worldly stuff in regards to identity and meaning, but the foundation of it is true mysticism. You see, Orthodoxy actually provides a true mystical encounter with God. You don't believe me? Then do it. That's why so people are scared to convert. That's why so many people are so scared to convert, because it's real. It's real. And if you actually take this journey seriously, when you're getting ready to be baptized into the church, you'll see it's real. You'll see all the strange shit that happens. You'll see the spiritual warfare. You'll see the people that begin to attack you, the people closest to you, because they're just conduits. They're susceptible to the temptations and the passions, and demons are triggering people to attack you. That's just one example, but you'll see it. You don't think the mystery is real? Then do it. I challenge you. Do it. Do it. Then you'll see this isn't fake. This isn't some placebo effect, right? Spirituality is real. There is a real spiritual warfare that is taking place all around us. And if you want to actually deal with that, you actually want to be on the right side of that fight, it's Orthodox Christianity that's going to give it to you. It's Orthodox Christianity that's going to give you the opportunity to re-sanctify America and give it a correct telos. I've talked with so many young men that are intellectually convinced of Orthodoxy, but don't go to a church, don't attend liturgy, and really aren't even on a timeline to convert. And you get down to it, whether they'll consciously say it or not, is they're scared to death. They're scared of what their family may think. They're scared of who they may become, right? I thought about this. All the problems and maybe the sinful appetites or temptations we struggle with, maybe they've already corrupted you to make you falsely think that that's your identity, because that's what we have in America, right? You like to sodomize men. Well, your identity now is you're a homosexual. Everything has to be filtered through that premise, through that prism. Orthodox Christianity actually gets you out of that. And the mysticism, the fact that this shit is real, actually provides true meaning to your daily life. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's easy to do your morning prayers. Doesn't mean it's easy to read scripture. Doesn't mean it's easy to do your evening prayers and attend liturgy and do the fast and participate in your parish community. It's not easy. But the point was never for it to be easy. The point was never for it to be easy. And that's actually then leads into my sixth point here of why America will be Orthodox, is because it forms boys into Christian men. Because it's not easy. And being a man is a recognition that the world isn't about pleasure, hedonism, and everything just being easy and at our fingertips. That actually prevents you from being a man. Being a man is tied with discipline. Being a man is tied with having some sense of work ethic and a purpose and a larger vision, and being a protector and a provider and a leader for your people and especially for your family. We live in a nation where everybody's a boy. So many people are boys. We talked about neoteny. Neoteny is it's a scientific term referring to the retention of juvenile characteristics. Right? You take a pig and you put it in a pen, and its skin is white, it's hairless, it has no tusks. You take that same pen, you open the gate, and you let it go in the wild. All of a sudden, you find that it begins to maturate in a way in which the skin gets darker, the skin gets thicker, it gets hairier, it gets tusk, because now the environment shapes the phenotypical expression. My argument is that our environment, just like the rat utopia experiment, because of how easy things are, because how easy it is to get everything, through your smartphone. You can order food, you can try to date, you can, your whole world is through your magic black mirror here. That actually contributes to the retention of juvenile characteristics into adulthood. We call that neoteny in animals. And we have a population of boys that have never grown up. And I'm talking about professional athletes. I'm talking about men with millions of dollars that does not define you as a man, right? How much money you make does not define you as a man. The clothes and brands you wear do not define you as a man. And when you look at what we elevate as celebrities and the ideal people in our society, they have a lot of juvenile characteristics. There's a lot of retention of juvenile characteristics. And so orthodoxy is demanding. It is a disciplined, heroic Christianity. We have a role for warrior saints. This is not passivism, right? This is not your religion where everybody's a good person. That's what the Methodist church that I grew up in, the last time I went to it was like in 2018 or 19. I think we went to the Christmas Eve service. I went with my parents because that was the church I grew up in. And even though they were becoming disillusioned with the church because they brought in a female pastor who allowed her golden retriever to walk up with her to the, her pulpit, which is next to an altar, a Protestant altar, not truly an altar, but, and then the dog would lay down. And even some of the older people found that scandalous, and rightfully so. But I attended that Christmas Eve service, and what was it? Just be a good person. Right? Jesus just tells you to be a good person. Well, how is that going to appeal to young men? It doesn't. And that's why men are leaving in droves the Protestant church. But we have a heroic Christianity that when you take on the cross of orthodoxy and begin to carry that, your life has more meaning. Every day has a meaning. You have a larger meta narrative for your life and the role that it is taking place within the historic context. We prioritize asceticism, hierarchy, masculine hierarchy, spiritual warfare. These things appeal to young men, right? Going to a church where the woman up there is telling you nothing about spiritual warfare, not condemning child transgenderism, not condemning the LGBTQ mafia. No, just be a good person. That does not appeal to young men, but a church that says, hey, you need to get your act together. Hey, you're addicted to pornography? Then shut your damn phone, dude. Take some responsibility. You can't control yourself? How are you going to be a man? How are you going to have a wife? How are you going to provide for a family? How are you going to lead people when somebody dies or something tragic happens? How are you going to deal with the world? Maybe you're not ready for the Orthodox Church, right? That's actually appealing for young men because they say, no, I want to be ready. Okay, well then start, do your fasts, do your prayers, get your body in line, right? We're not here for a superficial celebration where everybody has to have an IFBB Pro, physique. But my God, work out, make your body strong, learn some jujitsu and some martial arts. Go learn how to be tactical with guns. Do something. A man is defined by what he does. You can say what you believe all day long. What do you do? That's what defines you. In Orthodoxy, the fact that we have a male hierarchy, the fact that we have asceticism, which is not it's not this extreme. Nobody's calling you to be a monastic, right? Most of you, like myself, are going to be lay Orthodox Christians, and we're going to be married men. Our role for the church is different. Our role for the church is to make money so we can tithe. Our role for the church is to make babies so that we have new parishioners, so the church grows. Our work for the church is to make sure that we defend it from all the cultural influence that may try to subvert it. That's our role. That's our role as lay Orthodox men. That gives you a purpose, right? We actually have a boundary. I've talked about this with multiple people I've done streams with, but imagine the Orthodox Church as a perimeter, and you as a man, once you're catechized, once you're into the Orthodox life, once you're doing the thing, right, becoming a Christian man, you take your position on the perimeter with the armor of God, and you take no steps back. There is no compromising on abortion. There is no compromising on LGBTQ issues. There is no compromising on Zionism. These are antithetical to our faith, to our church. We need you. We need young men. We need you to become the best version of yourself so that we can succeed. This is powerful. This actually energizes young people. It's the Orthodox Church that provides that. And so the parish and communal life too, right? I've talked with some young Orthodox guys. They get it mentally. They are into the church. They're brought in. They're baptized. I ask, are you part of the community? Are you participating in the parish life? No, not really. Well, then do it. They got a bake sale. They need somebody there. Do it. That's part, especially if you're single. If you're a single man, what time demand do you have right now? Sacrifice yourself for other people, and you will grow in return of that. The parish and the communal life offers you an opportunity, as what we just talked about. Our communities, our communities are totally broken. There is no place to find your community now in America. Well, go to your church. Now you're in a community. Now offer yourself back to that community. That's real value. That's real purpose. Our church advocates for the defense of the faith, tradition, and nation. Are most churches telling young people that? Hey, young men, you have a role. Your role is to defend the faith. Make sure we preserve the tradition, because how does Orthodoxy, again, just thought experiment here. We believe that we have inherited a faith from the apostolic period forward. Now, we had the councils, we had things that elaborated and clarified the tradition and the faith, of course, but it's the same thing. It's the first millennial tradition. How did you get this in the 21st century? It's because the lay people and the clergy preserved it. But just like the Council of Florence, the clergy were able to due to political and cultural, military reasons, financial, economic reasons, they were willing to unite with Rome. They were willing to concede on aspects of the faith for essentially political reasons. Now, why did the Council of Florence not come to fruition? Because the people said, hell no, we're not uniting with the Catholics. Don't you know what we believe? This is us. This is what we do. And this is the opportunity for you and us, because how the hell is the next generation going to get Orthodoxy unless you and I defend it, preserve it, know it, and then pass it on to our children, and they can pass it on to their children? The only way the church preserves itself is through Orthodox Christians, lay Orthodox Christians. That's how we do it. That's our calling. That is purposeful. That is purposeful. You as a lay man have the incredible responsibility of preserving the faith so it will be passed down to the next generation, which thankfully all of our ancestors, and some of our ancestors didn't, but at least the spiritual ancestors of Orthodoxy have done for us. And so, moving from boy to man, Orthodoxy is famous for saying, are you going to be a monk or are you going to be married? Now, obviously, there's some spiritual grace for people who are neither a monastic or never get married. But generally speaking, that's for very, very few people. And your spiritual father is the one that's really going to make that discretion regarding what you should or shouldn't do. But generally speaking, you have two options. You either marry Christ in the church and you become a monastic and you go on the front lines of spiritual warfare, or you become a married man and you go on the front lines of worldly warfare for the church. That's what we're doing. That is appealing for young men. And in those militaristic terms too, that is appealing for young men. And that's not going to change. As I said, we're on reason 6 why America is going to be Orthodox. And none of these that we've listed are going to change in the near future. This is why this is not a trend. This is a true reaction to the failure of the West. Our church has the perfect harmony of the masculine and the feminine. Does the Catholic Church have the perfect harmony of the masculine and the feminine? Does the Protestant church? Obviously, the Protestant doesn't. They have women in pulpits. In a Protestant church, you'll get death glares if you say, hey, men should only do this and women should only do this. But Orthodoxy, we already have that. And we're not changing that anytime soon. So we have the perfect harmony between the masculine and the feminine. And our tradition promotes motherhood. How, what are Protestant churches explicitly promoting motherhood in the same way? And I think this is why the veneration of the Theotokos is so important, because we can see that the human ideal, obviously Christ is fully human, fully God, but the Theotokos was not God. She was just fully human. And she is the ideal. She is the virgin mother. And so we support and promote the idea of a virtuous motherhood, and that is a unique and privileged spiritual role for women. And in a world in which our demographics are collapsing because people don't have children, I think that is appealing for even young women. So this point, number 6, is really focused on boys being turned into Christian men. But notice that if you are a Christian man, our tradition then allows for a place that sanctifies and promotes virtuous motherhood and true traditional femininity. So, all right, that's number 6. Number 7, and then we'll get to some of these super chats. I apologize. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free. If you want to support, please support here on YouTube and give some Coda Crew memberships if you can. We'd really appreciate that. Or if you would like to use Streamlabs or Dono Chat, they take a lot less than YouTube. I'd greatly appreciate it. Number 7 reason why America will be Orthodox is digital evangelism. Digital evangelism. That through online content, millions have been exposed to Orthodoxy for the first time. That's just a fact. That's a fact. I mean, I've noticed since when I first became Orthodox, when you said Orthodox, people immediately said, "Are you Jewish?" Now, when you say Orthodox, people say, "Oh yeah, that's Eastern Orthodoxy," right? As of the latest Pew Research poll that I've seen, says that we are 1% of the U.S. population. Now, that just a few years ago was like 0.7%. Now, we are growing at a phenomenal rate, despite whatever news source tries to tell you otherwise. We are. Just ask the anecdotal evidence from every priest that has been on this YouTube channel has said our church is growing very rapidly. And it's mostly young men, but also some young women and families. Those are the people that are converting. It's not old people, right? It's not like we're getting a bunch of 60-year-old people converting to Orthodoxy. No, it's the youth. It's the hardest demographic to get. And advertising, it's the key demographic, right? The key demographic is young people because they are going to be potential buyers or consumers moving forward. It's not the old people. Protestantism has the old people. Orthodoxy has the young people. That means we have a future. They do not. But through digital evangelism, we have, for the first time, Orthodoxy spreading to so many people. And how is it spreading? Yes, it's through debates and stuff like that. But often it's through authentic testimony. It's through Orthodox Christians talking about their journeys. I've had so many people talk to me or sign up for one-on-ones because they were into the New Age. They were into psychedelics, just like I was. Deeply embedded into psychedelics, did all the psychedelics, did all the things that Terrence McKenna requested, took all the drugs, went to the ayahuasca ceremonies. And eventually I said, yeah, that's not it. It's actually Orthodox Christianity. Here's why I'm Orthodox. Now, that's why I created this YouTube channel. And I'm not here to talk about me, but I mean, all the most of the YouTube channels, it's through authentic testimony of individuals who have converted. This is not some institutional marketing like Scientology or Mormonism, right? Mormonism, you get these weird commercials. You watch one Mormon video, say you want to debate a Mormon, you watch one Mormon video, and all of a sudden you're getting all these Mormon advertisements on every video you watch. That is institutional marketing, right? Same thing with, send your money to the homeless people in Israel. Every Fox News or Newsmax show you watch. That is institutional Orthodoxy does not have institutional marketing. How the hell is it growing so fast? It's through digital evangelism. It's through people articulating the faith. It's through authentic testimony and organic discovery, which leads me back to, again, point number 2, that we are existing in a America that is hungry for transcendence in the spiritual or the secular age. And so it's organic discovery. People are looking for this stuff online and finding it. That's not going to go away. It's not going to go away anytime soon. And this is why, again, it's going to continue to grow. Point number 8 now. Point number 8 is disillusionment with ideological politics. So here's one for you. Orthodoxy stands above ideological polarization. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're an Orthodox Christian, it's very easy to be very critical of both political parties. The Republicans, number one, first and foremost, Zionism. You cannot be an Orthodox Christian and be a Zionist. To be a Zionist is to worship a false religious narrative, which is actually aiding and abetting the Antichrist spirit and bringing forth the third temple and the false Messiah, which the Jews believe is their true Messiah, which is our Antichrist. You cannot be an Orthodox Christian and be a Zionist. That is just a cold fact. Can't do it. And so, unlike Protestants and many Catholics, although I would say there's more anti-Zionist Catholics than Protestants, our tradition is explicit. Our tradition is very explicit. I know Pope Francis, before he passed away, he called the Catholic churches there in Gaza every night and concerned about it. Good for him. Good for him. But our church is very explicit with the fact that we are not some Judeo-Christian tradition, right? You look in the Vatican, and Dyer's covered this multiple times, how isn't the official position of the Catholic Church is that you're not to evangelize to Jews? So let me get that right. So many of the young Catholic men who are America First, which we would agree on, are anti-Zionist, but the church that they're a part of tells them they can't convert Jews? How do you think the Catholic Church is going to fare in the coming? Obviously, it's part of the globalist multicultural infrastructure that is emerging. The Catholic Church is not going to stand against the third temple. All right? Not going to happen. And so, same thing with the Democrats, LGBTQ stuff. And this is something that you can level at both the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, the Republicans are no better at the LGBTQ question. They're not. I mean, you have Caitlyn Jenner literally going to Mar-a-Lago, identifying as a woman, having a penis, and only dating women, and referring to himself as heterosexual. How the hell do you figure that out? And that's considered conservative. And you had Republicans say, we need to vote for Caitlyn Jenner for governor of California. What? And the same, I mean, you got, on just Republicans in general. There's a growing swath of us that are critical of all LGBTQ stuff or all homosexuality going on. And it really has no place in what we can call conservatism. But is the GOP aligned with that? Not really. Last time I saw that the GOP believed that Dave Rubin was some type of Jewish paragon of virtue when him and his husband are literally buying children. And I mean, it was disgusting. Did you see Jordan Peterson's recent interview with I just saw a clip of him and Dave Rubin, and Jordan's like asking him about, what's the importance of motherhood, and children really develop when they have a mother. And he's like, yeah, my husband, he's obsessed about reading about skin to skin contact and using formula and sort of, I guess, creating a fake breast to breastfeed. So, it's like that meme where the dad put a hole in his shirt and puts the bottle through so the baby will suck, confusing it with breastfeeding. What? Jordan Peterson's literally defending gay marriage and child adoption with Dave Rubin in his latest interview. Dude. And you know, the GOP, for example, you know, another criticism, because obviously at this point, you can't be a Democrat and be Orthodox. Now, you can be an Orthodox Christian and be a Democrat by name, but you cannot be living the Orthodox faith and vote for Democrat policies because, number one, you can't vote for abortion. Number two, you can't vote for homosexuality and all the degeneracy that follows. But with the conservative movement, I mean, this is where being Orthodox can actually give you a new perspective on GDP go up, nation good. No, it's not. What? The health of a nation is not determined by the GDP, right? This is one of my problems with like Donald Trump and much of the Trump administration is they make this false assumption that, oh, the stock market is at record highs right now. GDP is up. The nation's doing great. Well, really? Because I'm seeing a lot of people struggling. I'm seeing mass immigration. I'm seeing really low deportation numbers. I'm seeing a lot of stuff that doesn't really seem like America's in a great spot right now. And the Republicans, because of their religion of capitalism, right, which again, Orthodoxy stands against. We're not capitalists. We're not communists. We're not socialists. We are the Orthodox Church. We believe in charity. We believe in helping people. We also believe in meritocracy. So yeah, capitalism in maybe a restricted sense, not this, you know, I'm a free market capitalist. Have you played Monopoly? Monopoly ends where communism begins. What are you talking about? Don't you know that the capitalists of the West funded the communist revolutions in the 20th century? What are you talking about? This isn't some, you know, team capitalism versus team communism. These things go together. These are, again, part of modernity. And that's why, like, this religion of capitalism by the Republican Party, it's like as long as money goes up, somehow everything's fine. No, it's not. And that idea is the problem in and of itself. America is a people. America is not a stock market. America is not a bank. Unfortunately, that's what it's become. It's a military bank. It's a bank with a ginormous military attached to it. That's what America is right now. But that's not a nation then, because no nation is just a bank with people. And the same thing, you know, that's where you look at what Mamdani does in New York City, and then you got Trump and the Trump administration telling you that they'll never forgive student loan debt because you took it out, you owe it. It's like, what? So let me get this straight. The Trump administration tells us that it tells us that the universities are corrupted institutions, that they can't be trusted, right? They claim that they're filled with anti-Semitism, but they're all leftists, right? They're woke. You can't trust the universities. They don't even educate people. Okay, I'll agree with that. I can get down on that. You know, that the U.S. shouldn't, you know, the government shouldn't subsidize education. We need to eliminate the Department of Education. Okay, I'm in for that. And then they turn around and say, you took out your student loan debt. You got to pay it back. And it's like, wait, you just agreed that the premise of the commodity I was purchasing wasn't actually what I was purchasing. You agreed that tuition is inflated due to, you know, the guaranteeing of the student loans, that the universities know they're going to make their money based on the government backing of these loans. And then you can't file bankruptcy to get out of them. They're essentially slavery. It's creating a feudal system on purpose. So when the WEF says you will own nothing and you will like it, they're talking about the fact that they've already got you into debt through your student loans. And we're supposed to think that this is going to save us as a country? No. That's why, again, Orthodoxy is above the political ideological polarization. And when you become Orthodox, I think it's so much, you find this freeing ability to criticize both parties, that when you're a Protestant, because there's this weird mentality where the Constitution is part of like a religious doctrine for you, and that America is the divinely inspired nation by God, and that you and I must devote our, you know, we must pray for Donald Trump. And I'm not even saying that God doesn't give us the leaders that we deserve. I absolutely believe that's a very Orthodox understanding. That's the reason why we should have a monarchy. But okay, we got Joe Biden, we got Donald Trump, we got Mamdani because God allowed it to occur. That it's a judgment on us. It's a judgment on us. But for Protestants, there's very little wiggle room to actually criticize the Republican Party because you think that that's your only outlet to salvation. The only way we can save America is we got to vote in more Republicans. Meanwhile, they literally criticize Lindsey Graham and, whatever neoconservative commentator, Mitch McConnell's no longer in the Senate, but, whatever neoconservative, they'll criticize and then they tell you, oh, we got to vote for more Republicans. We got to vote for more Republicans. How many times do you got to do this? It's like Charlie Brown and Lucy pulling the football away. It's like, really, you're going to fall for this again and again and again and again? No, Orthodoxy allows you to realize there is no political solution, right? We do not allow politics to become the mystical outlet of our Christian faith. That's what so many American Protestants do, is they think that voting in your election is somehow sanctifying, that voting and participating in civil politics is going to redeem the nation. Now, I'm not saying that voting isn't important especially for local politics. It is. Getting your sheriff, getting the community leaders in place that actually in some way mirror your values. Yeah, that is important. And everybody who lived in a good place during COVID and the lockdowns know that's real. Where I'm from, we had a really good sheriff. He was Christian and he wasn't going to do and enforce any of the social distancing lockdown stuff. So we were able to get away with stuff. But that doesn't mean participating in the civic society of America is somehow sanctifying like so many Protestants believe. It's not going to happen. You cannot vote your way out of this. The only way we get out of it is for men to become men and that we reach a threshold in which the culture itself reflects the people inside of it. And Protestantism isn't going to do that. And that's where I'm arguing that Americans often filter reality through a political lens. I mean, you talk with a Protestant and everything almost becomes political immediately. And you almost have to do that just to engage in American society because people engaging with you are coming at you through a political lens. You wear something that's pro-America or American flag or something that the leftist immediately knows, oh God, oh, they're a Republican. Everything in America is political. That's why Orthodoxy supplants it. It's above the ideological polarization. And that's necessary to get us out of this. I mean, this is why Republicans continue. One of the things that I hate about Protestants, they again believe that the Constitution is divinely inspired. And then they will say, oh, the liberals, the Democrats, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's unconstitutional. Okay, so you agree that they're not playing by the rules of the Constitution. Yeah, they're not playing by the same rules. Then why are you playing by the rules of the Constitution? Well, it's the Constitution. You can't be American without the American Constitution. You just said the people in power that you're frustrated with are not abiding by so move beyond the rule book because people aren't using the rule book anymore. Okay? Like, get over it. Get over it. It's not that we can't still identify. Yes, the founding fathers, very unique men in history. It's incredible what they could do. Most of them were in their 20s. It's amazing. It's amazing as a historical phenomenon. But okay, that's where it ends. Right? The Constitution was not inspired by God. It's a Masonic, deist, general Christian document for a democratic republic. That's not going to save you, and it's not going to save our nation, and it's only going to get worse because of that. So that's number 8, is that disillusionment with ideological politics is a huge thing that I think, again, it's not going to stop. The politics are going to become more polarized. And in a sense, that's a good thing because we're getting away from the mono party, right? We're getting away from the uniparty. The left is becoming more leftist. And thank God the right is becoming more right wing. Thank God. At least what's emerging. This is why the tension between Shapiro and Fuentes and those two camps and all the attacks on Tucker, that's why they're happening, because the Mark Levins of the world, the Zionist infrastructure of the Republican and Democratic Party, they can feel it. They can feel it slipping away. That's why Shapiro's literally crying in his 40-minute monologue that I devoted my whole life to Republican politics, and I'm not going to let this slip away. Well, what's slipping away, Ben? The only thing that's slipping away is support for Israel, Ben. But that's a good thing. So I see the polarization, generally speaking, as a good thing for America. But Orthodoxy prioritizes itself and supplants politics, and it's above the polarization. I think that gives you solace, right? It gives you, it eases the anxiety when you feel like everything has to be political. Just look at Twitter. Look at all the non-Orthodox people and look how fervent they are and how anxious they are about politics, because they think every executive, every executive decision, every vote, this is going to make or break the nation. No, it's not, dude. Like, get over it. Get over it. Number 9, the 9th reason why America will become Orthodox is that it's about community and not individualism. Life is about community and not individualism. We are communal entities. God himself is 3 persons with one essence. It is about communion. That is the point of life. God created humanity so that we, through free will, could choose God. Therefore, if we could freely choose God with the Imago Dei, being made in the image and having the same free will that God has, then we can experience love, because love cannot be forced. If God loved humanity, he has to let humanity choose to love him, because that's the only way that love could exist. Love it presupposes free will. And what we have now in America, as we said, rugged individualism wasn't so bad at the early 19th century and the early 1800s. Wasn't so bad. We conquered territory, went in, expanded into the wilderness, discovered things, explored. That was that rugged individualism. But now it's gone so far, as I said, people live in digital isolation. That Orthodoxy centers around the parish and shared worship, feasts, fasting, mutual aid. This is where meaning comes from. This is where relationships come from. Why are so many people socially awkward, the young men who come to the Orthodox Church? Because they haven't been socialized. So many young men who come to the Orthodox Church never hang out with like adult men. They haven't been teased. They haven't been challenged. They've never had to compete. These are just necessary things so that you become a socialized man, right? Is that men, we naturally compete with each other. We naturally chastise and mock and make fun of. That's actually how we show we like each other. It's very ironic. But for so many young people, they have no social history in a sense. They really just have never been a part of a community outside of maybe their home. And for, let's be honest, for half of them, they don't even have a dad. And we wonder why they're socially awkward. Well, because the majority of their social interactions are through a phone. There's one guy in my Logos Academy. Shout out to Newbie. Newbie is a world-class power lifter and strongman. He's in the top 10 in his division in strongman. He just competed at the World Strongman competition in Ireland. And he was talking about how he had a young man reach out to him and wanted to learn about lifting. And he said on the phone through these text messages, this kid sounded so confident, so assertive, sounded like he was really knowledgeable about everything, like he was a go-getter. And so he set up a time to go meet this kid and train with him. And when they met in person, he would hardly talk, never made eye contact, kept looking down. It was all a facade. And one of the things it shows is just how confident people are through social media. And again, I don't blame this young man. My point is, look at the ways in which people socialize. That's how he socialized. He socialized through social media. And so he's very confident when he's texting someone, or he's commenting on social media, or doing something through some type of technological gadget. But when it comes to face-to-face interaction, where things actually matter, where the real world is, right? We're not living in a fantasy when we're face to face anymore. This is real life. No confidence, no social skills, no ability to communicate. This is a huge problem. How do we overcome this? We get the people to involve themselves in the community of the parish and the church, and the men of that parish will begin to shape those individuals. We have to have compassion on them, but we have to bring them into an environment where we can reshape them into socialized, competent men. That's how we win long term. American society, as I said, is fragmented, digitally isolated. It's multi-religious. It's multi-religious and has no shared sacred canopy, as I said. So in that environment, where do you find your people? Where are your people? Right? This is where I take umbrage with the white nationalist, white supremacist is, who would you rather live next to? A devout Orthodox Christian that is, I don't know, from Ethiopia. I'm not saying Ethiopian Orthodox. I'm saying, assume they're Eastern Orthodox. Would you rather live next to an Ethiopian family that is Orthodox Christian or an atheist, progressive, leftist, white family next to you? Which one's more important? Is it the ethnic connection or is it the spiritual connection? And clearly, in my opinion, where I fall on that is the spiritual connection. And if that's the case, it's about the spiritual connection. Well, then the church is your people. The church is your people. You got to get in the community and involve yourself with your people, because where else can you find your people? Where else are your people? If you're in America, who are your people and where are they? Legitimately, where are your people? You know, it's your neighbors, it's your community, but all that stuff has been destroyed. The majority of people do not talk to their neighbors. You know, and I'm the same way. In where I live, I have seen only one of my neighbors, you know, and just based on observation, there's going to be a lot of differences between us, a lot of cultural and political, religious differences between us. So who are your people? Who's the people that share your values? Who's the people that are going to help you when you're in need? Who's the people that are going to come when a tragedy happens, your wife dies, your children die, your parents die? Who's going to be there to console you? You have to have a community. And so the church is the place where you find your people. That's the place. And it doesn't, and so in my commentary about the spiritual kin versus the ethnic kin, that's not to say that ethnicity isn't important. That's not what I'm saying at all. Obviously, there's an agenda to wipe out European ethnicity and identity in the world. Why is it that it's only European nations that are being flooded with third world people? Because it's a plan. So obviously, I'm aware of it. I'm not saying that there is an attack on white identity. Clearly, there is. But when it comes down to community and meaning, who are your people? And even in America, if you say it's white Americans, half those people are not going to claim you as their people. But if you become an Orthodox Christian, all of Orthodox Christians in America will say you're one of us. Now you have your people, you have your parish, you have your culture, you have your identity, you have responsibilities to other people. This is valuable. This is meaningful. And so it allows for a social stability that you cannot find anywhere else in America. Where do you find social stability? Honestly, if I had to guess, the majority of people find their social stability at work. I'm not kidding. That's why there's so many affairs in the workplace. Think about it. Your wife, let's say she works 9 to 5. And I'm not against if women work, you know, preferably I don't want my wife to work. You know, God willing, I can make enough money where that can be a real possibility moving forward. But let's say your wife works. So she's gone from 9 to 5. Let's say it's a basic 9 to 5 job. Who does she spend the majority of her time with? Who does she spend the majority of her socializing with? Who does she spend the majority of her shared experiences with? It's basically split between you and her workplace. And if that's the case, like that is their social stability. That is their outlet. No wonder women sleep with the men and their bosses at work, because that's where they feel socially secure, because the communities are all broken down. That's why becoming Orthodox and getting into the church, now you have a social stability that reinforces your cultural values, your theological values, your moral principles. And it will hold your wife to that as well, right? I mean, your wife can't just walk with you into church wearing a miniskirt. Not going to fly. At least at my parish, not going to fly. Unfortunately, I've heard some parishes they let women get away with more, but typically you can't wear something above the knee. You got to cover your shoulders, and preferably you need to wear a head covering, not because we're subjugating you, but because you as a woman and your body can inflame the passions. And we're not here. It's not about you. We don't need eyeballs on the pretty lady at church. We need eyeballs on the iconostasis and the priest and the chalice. And so you want a community that's going to reinforce your values once you do find a woman? You need the church. You're going to go to your Protestant church where half of them are feminists and going to tell her, "Oh, it's okay. You can do this. You can do that. Feminism is really not bad in this regard. Is your husband, if you're not really, 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 really happy, if you're not just really, really, really excited every day, you may need to divorce him." You want to bring your wife in a community like that? Look at the divorce rates amongst the different religious traditions. You're going to have to bring her to an Orthodox community that revalidates, and to use that sociological term, so the sacred kingdom, to legitimate our values. We externalize, objectify, and internalize our values. Orthodoxy is already creating it's the alternate sacred canopy. Okay. And that leads into my last and 10th point, and then we'll get into the super chats and I'll respond to everybody. The reason why America is going to become Orthodox is because this is America's providence. This is America's providence. Protestantism has already had its chance and it failed. Catholicism, you could make the argument it had its chance. Remember when it had the ability to limit what was being seen through Hollywood, right? It was able to exercise its moral perspective and prescriptions for society and limit what degenerate content may be consumed through entertainment. But is the Catholic Church really a center focus of American life now? Is the Protestant Church? And so Orthodoxy is the last unbroken link to the early church. It just is. America is at a spiritual crossroads. We'll just focus on Protestant, but Protestantism has failed. The American Protestant experiment has failed. The West is crumbling under moral collapse and spiritual confusion. I mean, that's why you look at England and you see people. Let's even look at England. Let's look at New York City, right? This was what blew me away, is that women in street interviews said, "Hey, I feel unsafe in New York City. There's all these men. A guy grabbed my butt and breast the other day while I was walking down the street in mid Manhattan in the middle of the day. I feel unsafe in Chicago." And then they got a "I voted for Mamdani" sticker on their chest. What? And that's the moral collapse. So our culture is morally collapsing in the sense of how we engage with each other, our crime, everything like that, the relativism. But then we have people under, again, a spiritual confusion that then vote for the things that are accentuating the things that they're worried about. Now, this is just a problem with women voting in general. I mean, as we know, but the West is falling apart. And I argue that the two main pillars that are falling apart is the spiritual confusion. So Christendom, again, really should be Orthodoxy, but Christendom is spiritually confused. You literally have a female liberal Archbishop of Canterbury. You really think Anglicanism is going to go in the right direction? You think Anglicanism, the Church of England, is going to preserve the English people against the hordes of Muslims in your country? Give me a break. And that's why in the West, people are searching for stuff. They need something real, so they find psychedelics, they find occultism, they find, the spiritual, not religious, the New Age, whatever it may be. Anything, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam. I mean, how many people are you seeing in England, like these white English people converting to Islam? How is that happening? Well, one, they have no identity. The identity of being English means absolutely nothing. They're not Christian anymore. And so they really don't know what to do. So instead of fighting the horde, they just, join the mob. Why don't we just become Muslims? Pretty easy. Pretty easy. You just have to state, make your submission to Allah, claim that Muhammad is the prophet. Now you start going to the mosque, start reading your Quran, you're Muslim. You think that's going to preserve your nation? And the same thing's true in America. Like, we are literally at a spiritual crossroads, and that's why Orthodoxy is so appealing. That's why so many young men are flocking to the church to find refuge, because we are the hospital of the soul. We are the ark of the covenant. We are Noah's ark in the flood. We are the refuge. And we are now, for the first time in American history, becoming mainstream. Never before was Orthodoxy a mainstream thing in America. Yes, we have the Greek chapel of St. Photius and St. Augustine from that, small Greek community that immigrated. And unfortunately, many passed away. Yes, we have the Russian Orthodox Church that converted the Aleuts in Alaska and the Native Americans and made its way down the southern West Coast, south down the West Coast. But Orthodoxy's never been mainstream in America. Well, now it is. We had Father Josiah Trenum on Tucker Carlson's homage to Charlie Kirk, his memorial to Charlie Kirk. There was only one Christian representative on that stream, and it was Father Josiah Trenum. Orthodoxy is hitting the mainstream right now. And it is because this is providence, guys. I truly believe that where America is right now is providential for us to accept Orthodoxy. I mean, if Orthodoxy became sort of a mainstream item in America 50 years ago, 60 years, you think we would have had the converts we have today? No, it's like God's providence brought the church and allowed it to be glorified and allow it to be seen in America right at the point in which everything was crumbling apart, because this is the only place where you can find shelter. And so God is using this time, I argue, to reintroduce the old faith in the new world. And in that sense, the new world, if we continue through the glory of God, will reflect the old world and the old faith of the old world. And from that perspective, I don't see why there'd be any pessimism from an Orthodox Christian perspective about America moving forward. We are going to win. We are going to win. We have God on our side. We have the sacraments. We have the tradition. We have the history. We have the theology. The only thing we need is you. The only thing we need is the hearts and minds of young individuals to join the church and take up the challenge. And if there's anything that I think that out of the Americana mind, the American mind, that can appeal, is that we love a challenge and Americans love a fight. And if you want to fight evil, you want to fight the evil of this world, you want to fight the coming of Antichrist, we're the only one church doing it. We're the only one church that the gates of hell will not prevail against. So that is going to be, those are my 10 points. Went a little bit longer than I expected, but sorry, I'm a bit verbose sometimes. Those are my 10 points of why America will be Orthodox. And despite the videos of Gavin Ortland or all these Catholic apologists, it's not going to make a bit of difference. Protestantism is dead. People are not going back to Protestantism. It's just not happening. The only other option is Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Oriental Orthodox. Oriental Orthodox is way too ethnic. You know, if they think the Greek church, the Greek Orthodox church is too ethnic, wait till you go to an Oriental church. That's going to be way more ethnic. And plus, they're not even, you know, they're non-Chalcedonian. They don't have the same theology. So in my mind, the Oriental church is not a threat. It's not a threat. It's not going to expand. It's not going to grow in the Western world. The only way it grows is through mass immigration. And it's not like the Western power is going to choose a bunch of Coptic or Oriental Christians to immigrate, but Orthodoxy and Catholicism. And that choice is becoming clearer and clearer by the day. And really, the only thing holding people to Catholicism is the ancestral historical identity, right? Their parents were Catholic. They were Catholic. You know, they want to be in the same faith as their grandparents and their ancestors. I can get that. But, you know, only for a small swath of people are theological arguments converting people to Catholicism from Orthodoxy, because we have it. We have it. So as long as the playing field is equal, we will win. And that's why we are winning now. It's not going to stop.